Thank you. Wonderful. So it seems like Acha, Tushita Delhi is the host. I am Jamyang for the time being. Oh, sorry, I better change my name. Rename. Yeah. So maybe if Tushita Delhi is there, is Namita there, Naveenji?
Yeah, Kabirji, she'll join us shortly. She's upstairs.
Do you know how to give me co-host status?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, that should be.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All righty. Let's start. So just take a few moments to slow down and take a few deep breaths, relaxing with the out breath. Make sure the posture is appropriate, please. Upright, shoulders level, head tilted slightly forwards, feet good contact with the ground. On a cushion, make sure that is adjusted properly so that your back is supported. So the posture is one aspect of what in general I think could be called mudra in the Indian wisdom tradition, although mudra is often thought of as hand gestures, but just the whole posture of the body is a mudra, is a gesture, and it's very important. It gives that sense of uprightness, stability, a sense of dignity, dignity. And the front of the body being open, then also that sense of open-heartedness, the open, spacious quality that we are constantly reminding ourselves of. Since the problem is grasping, craving, and tightening, you could say, uptightness. So the front of the body is suggesting an openness, a letting go, not a holding on or a holding in. So just rest at ease in this posture. And then bring to mind how the vast majority of sentient beings are not at all living in such ease. They are in a state of perpetual unease. In many cases, tremendous mental and physical stress, pain. And the happinesses, the little happinesses, pleasures that the beings have, so short-lived, so almost, well, childish in a sense. One is reminded at the moment of football, with the World Cup happening. You see how delighted, excited the beings become when they score a goal. And yet just a few moments later, or by the end of the match, if that team loses, then you see a completely different story on the faces of the players. And one feels some sadness for the beings for whom really this is the highlight. These are the highlights of their life, these moments, which don't last at all. And this is, of course, not even to mention the amount of physical suffering and even loss of life that apparently went into the building of these vast stadiums, just in the middle of the sands, as it were, of Qatar. One wonders how long they will be maintained as first-class stadiums, after the matches are over. Anyway, any situation whatsoever that seems can be used as a meditation on the shortcomings of samsara, the suffering of samsara, the dukkha. So remembering these beings, remembering especially if one has taken the vows to be of benefit to others, not just of benefit, but to the Bodhisattva vows to attain highest awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. So if one has taken those vows, then that's something quite special, really, quite extraordinary. So one remembers all these beings and one's own limitations, one's own shortcomings at the moment. But that is why we need the courage, the bravery, that despite all of the outer circumstances, which are problematic, challenging, and despite the inner confusion and afflictive, disturbing emotions, despite that, one is not going to give up. One is going to work in whatever way one can for the benefit of the beings. And I think we should constantly, if we can, bring to mind that extraordinary, I feel, verse in chapter 5, I think, wasn't it? Chapter 5, where Shantideva says that there is no such thing as something that is not learned by a bodhisattva. So doesn't mean we have to become experts in everything right now, but we should be interested in a spectrum of activities, you could say, or situations, so that we can reach out to different kinds of people. It's like being a doctor who has really has a very excellent knowledge of general medicine and so forth, and is also able to give excellent advice on all, so many aspects of health and disease and so forth, not just specializing in one or two things, but having a wide spectrum of knowledge and practice. So may we be like that. So you see, just by, even in a very amateurish way, investigating Shantideva's great text, even that is so beneficial. We have the right motivation, and also due to what I would call the power of the object, which is this text, great text, you see. Probably just remembering the name of Shantideva and his text is something very, very beneficial, rather than, what is it, a mad comic or Batman or whatever, or, something like that, which have their entertainment value, but don't have the ability to benefit us and others life to life, as does Shantideva's great work. So generate in your own way a motivation for the session. You will have had experiences in the last few hours or days or whatever with friends, enemies, relations. All of this can help to generate a very strong sense of not only of compassion, but that sense of renunciation, that really there's no little corner somewhere hidden in samsara which is going to provide ultimate happiness. That cannot be provided in a samsaric situation. By definition, that is suffering, that is limited, constricted. We'll sit together quietly for a little while with the breath awareness practice. Let there be a sense of spaciousness and ease while maintaining stillness, relaxation, and sense of being very alert, attentive. Okay. Just spend a few moments preparing for the next phase of the session. But we can, of course, maintain this calm, clear, open awareness that we generate during meditation. Right, so yeah. Right, I have, that's nice. I feel I'm in Tushita actually. When I put on the speaker view, I get the full picture of Tushita and one person in the middle. And bold member on the left. Yes. Okay, so short quotation from Trungpa Rinpoche before we go into Shantideva again. Here he's talking about renunciation and daring in his book Shambhala. And he has an interesting, slightly different definition of renunciation. You might say it's a kind of a Bodhisattva definition of renunciation, or Mark II. Renunciation, as you know, in general, is seeing clearly that nothing in samsara is in the nature of lasting happiness. So the sadness that comes from that, and giving up any hopes of lasting satisfaction from anything samsaric, anything connected to the eight worldly dharmas, and to give up, in the very classical sense of this, to give up working just for the benefit of this life, but having a much more concern for the happiness of future lives, and of course a desire for liberation from samsara, with its continuous cycling, revolving around birth, sickness, old age, death, fueled by delusion and karma. So here, there's another definition of renunciation, which is not connected just with asceticism or giving up the sense pleasures of the world, embracing an austere spiritual life. Here, renunciation means that the warrior, the spiritual warrior, that Shantideva also mentions, in a sense, the warrior here renounces anything in their experience that is a barrier between themselves and others. So one renounces anything that is a barrier between oneself and others. I mean, that is just mind-blowing, actually, if you think about it. Think of all the barriers we erect between ourselves and others. I mean, you would find many: the fears, the expectations, the self-doubt, the prejudice. But I think fear and prejudice are very high on the list of what tend to get in the way. And of course, they come from clinging to me, and so forth. So we're renouncing anything that's a barrier between ourselves and others. And Shantideva is getting us to do precisely this. And it becomes clearer in the chapter on meditation, chapter 8, when he's talking about how we falsely identify with this I, and how, arbitrary in a sense and ignorant that is. So in that sense, from the wisdom perspective, from that perspective, we can actually break down this wall that separates us from others due to our holding on to this I, me, mine, this person is me, as he puts it, these drops of sperm and blood that have gone to make me, why are they so different from those that have gone to make others, So he has a very interesting argument on, meditation in that chapter. That's an amazing chapter, chapter 8. Anyway, so then later in this chapter, and I've read it before, but it's kind of, it's a very good, I think, reminder of what we are, our situation. He says, those of you who have this version, of course, you can also read it. He's saying that, the bodhisattva, aspiring bodhisattva is like an island in the middle of a lake. Yeah, an island in the middle of a lake. And, boats are coming and going between the shore and the island. But that is actually, in one way, expressing the further aloneness of the island. It's like when you invite people home, yeah? You invite people to your home, they come, they commute to your home, and you have a little party or get together, And then they go away, right? Then they go away. And then it's, then you feel, this sense of loneliness or aloneness. You realize that there's all that activity. You could have a very active day, people coming and going, the cook and the cleaner and everybody coming and going. And then at the end of the day, what's there? It's you and your mind, and your laptop, So although the warrior's life is dedicated to helping others, they realize, I'm just going to use the pronoun, sorry, that's used in this book. I'm not going to try and say she and he and they and them and all those things at the moment. I'm sorry. I'm just going to read what Trungpa has written. People can translate it into whatever they wish. Although the warrior's life is dedicated to helping others, he realizes that he'll never be able to completely share his experience with others. Fullness of his experience is his own, and he must live with his own truth. Yet, he's more and more in love with the world. So that combination of love affair and loneliness is what enables the warrior to constantly reach out to help others. By renouncing his private world, the warrior discovers a greater universe, a fuller and fuller broken heart. So this isn't something to feel bad about. It's a cause for rejoicing. It is entering the warrior's world. So, one is embracing a fuller and fuller universe, greater universe. That is what this text is all about. Giving up the constricted sense of one's own personal bubble, one's own little personal cocoon, and out either to get something from the outside or to reinforce one's self-protection. Yeah. Okay. So come back to our looking at some verses yesterday, weren't we, from verse 20, 21, and we got up to verse, we got up to verse 33, 34 or so. And the verses which were talking about primal substance, I think we can leave that for now. That is not essential for understanding the main purpose of this chapter. Although, of course, verses 30 and 31 are, especially 31 is very important at this stage, where we are looking at how if we begin to understand dependent arising and how all events, all phenomena that are occurring, inner and outer, all of them are dependent arising, depending on causes and conditions, then we begin to have a more sober, appropriate, rational, non-emotional understanding of why things happen, how things happen, and not to get totally upset when things don't go our way, or people upset us, or circumstances, prove, really miserable in some way or another. We don't get angry because we realize everything does have causes and conditions. And actually, we have the power now to create causes and conditions that will ensure that we have more and more harmonious and wholesome and pleasant, happy experiences in the future. It's in our hands. It's not in the hands of God or the Buddha, or it's not even in the hands of our guru or our parents or our partners. It's in our own hands. So there's much in this chapter on karma, because that is cause and effect. That is so important to remember. Okay, let's go on to verse 34 is good place we can start again. If things are brought about into being by choice, okay, if we had a choice in the matter, and since none of us wishes to suffer, then of course suffering wouldn't occur to anyone. If we really had the choice, the freedom to do what brought happiness, we would do that because we don't want to suffer. But it's not like that, is it? Due to the power of other causes and conditions, the ones that keep samsara revolving, disturbing emotions and karma. So verse 35 is showing just how disturbed we can become, the mind can become in this world, in samsara, through not being careful. Careful, I think, here has much more than just the implication of not falling into holes in the sidewalk. It means being very careful of karma, of how we behave. Through not being careful, and obviously not being aware of the consequences of our actions, not thinking through the implications of our actions. It says, through not being careful, people even harm themselves with thorns and other things. And for the sake of obtaining women and the like, they become obsessed and deprive themselves of food. So ladies, you're going to have to change that to for the sake of obtaining men, or whatever one's preference. So for the sake of obtaining women or men or anything in this world, status, money, anything, we become obsessed. We can deprive ourselves of sleep and food and stuff, just to try and get something that is not going to prove ultimately that helpful either, Then he goes on, there are some who injure themselves through the unmeritorious deeds of hanging themselves, leaping from cliffs, eating poison and unhealthy food. So these are all considered unmeritorious. Suicide is considered very unmeritorious. However much one may sympathize, of course, with someone who goes to that extreme, it is a highly unwholesome action because it involves a sense of harming. So there's violence involved, there's murder involved, one is murdering oneself. So that is considered highly unmeritorious, and it's not considered, obviously, a good way to die. There may be some situations, there could be, if there's a very mature and wise person, but really very wise, and with a good carer, a wise, compassionate carer, And then we have these things, don't we? We have assisted suicide is allowed in some countries, right? Like the Netherlands, I think, and others. So one can, Switzerland possibly. So one can have an assisted suicide, but one has to be very careful about that, you know. And of course, the reasons being that the person is usually some kind of tremendous pain, or you know, that is just unbearable, whatever. But even there, karmically, one has to, it's very tricky. It's a very tricky situation. Anyway, here we're just talking about sort of normal getting sick and tired of things, or someone, you know, doesn't show, doesn't appreciate us, someone doesn't love us, one doesn't get enough marks in the exam, you know, we are whatever. So then we even go to the extent of killing ourselves, you know. That apparently people were doing that from the first story of the Qutb Minar many decades ago. Then they stopped people going, you know, climbing up Qutb Minar. It used to be great fun actually climbing up Qutb Minar in my childhood up to the first floor. It was a long way. One had a wonderful view of Delhi, which was much less spread out in those days. Anyway, you can't climb up, you can't, you know, go to some places because people go to the extent of killing themselves, you know, eating poison, unhealthy food. Yeah, well, if you look at that, unhealthy food, that's the kind of low-grade violence against oneself that many of us perpetrate. I mean, people who do have the choice or the finances to eat something, you know, better, more healthy. Still, we eat unhealthy food that we enjoy because we say we enjoy it, you know. So you see people, a lot of the vendors in India, they earn a living because people, we're happy to eat fattening food, tasty fattening food at street corners, which is not helping us long term at all. So anyway, so he then says, you know, if when, verse 37, if when under the influence of disturbing people will even kill their treasured selves, how can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? है ना? जब आदमी अपने को मारने के लिए तैयार है, तो वो दूसरों को हानि कैसे नहीं पहुंचाएंगे? वो तो करना ही है। जब आदमी अपने को मार सकता है, तो दूसरों को नहीं मार, जरूर मारेगा। तो यही जब क्लेश के गुलाम हो गए हम लोग, तो यही होते रहेगा। और तो कुछ होगा ही नहीं। क्या? We shouldn't be at all surprised, you know, when people do these things. You know, we sometimes are shocked when we hear about suicide bombers, or, you know, people just out of their teens, or not even out of their teens, going back to their old schools and, you know, shooting up, you know, shooting people, shooting fellow students, teachers. And we say, how could that possibly happen? But actually, it's when one begins to investigate the causes and conditions, it becomes very, very understandable, actually, really. Even though you might say, I couldn't do it, but it becomes very understandable. Then when you add understanding of past lives, then you can, then that's makes it even more understandable. You know, you might have a grudge, we might have a grudge against our former school or society or whatever, but we would largely act it out in our minds, some kind of fantasy about what we would like to do, you know, to harm others. Or we might do some low-grade thing like, you know, make a hoax call saying there's a bomb in here or there, or, you know, whatever. But to go to the extent of going in there and killing, and then usually, not always, but very often, then killing oneself, turning the gun on oneself, you know, who can do that? How can people do that? Well, it's a question of habituation due to many aspects and causes and conditions, many stemming, I'm sure, from past life experience. So even if I can't develop compassion for such people who, through the arisal of disturbing conceptions, set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. Yeah, when we really understand, then how can we be angry with them? It's all due to the arisal of disturbing emotions. They're just caught up in that. We all know. I'm sure we've all had that experience to some extent. When we are so caught up in a negative emotion, we just cannot see anything else at that moment. We are just caught up in the anger or the verbal, abuse. It's so upset, so angry. We just can't help it. So of course, in such situations, people are going to do all sorts of things. So one has to develop compassion. Well, he's saying even you can't develop compassion, at least don't get angry with them. And then some very good verses, which I think we touched on the logic of this in the last session. Even if it were the nature of the childish to cause harm to other beings, it would still be incorrect to be angry with them. For this would be like begrudging fire for having the nature to burn. We say, okay, we have Buddha nature, the anger that comes is not part of the person, let it go, it's coming and going. Actually, this is, potential Buddha in front of me. One can use that logic, but of course, which is closer to the truth. But even if it were that person were, in the nature, it was in their nature constantly to cause harm to others, it would be improper to be angry with them because that's just their nature. That's how it is. It's like being unhappy with fire, for having the nature to burn, for being unhappy with wood, for having the nature that it has, like that. No one might prefer different kinds of trees. I'm up here in Himachal, and all the trees around us here at Tushita, they're these very straight, tall trees, yeah. So if we're going around saying, oh, I don't like these trees, I prefer ones which are, different shapes and this and that. Well, tough luck, this is what the trees are like up here. How can we begrudge them for being what they're like? You come down slightly elevation, then you see the rhododendron bushes. They're totally different. They're very twisted and turning and so forth. So one could begrudge them for being what they're like. Oh, I don't like them. They're too twisty and this and that. Why aren't they more upright and so forth? So, we just mustn't get annoyed with things which are just acting out their own nature, just being what they are. That's what they are. And then, okay, if the fault were temporary, so say the anger is temporary, in people who are by nature more reliable, then again it would be incorrect to be angry. Well, this would be like begrudging space for allowing smoke to arise in it. We don't get upset with space. Well, we do sometimes, but that's foolish. we don't get upset with space when some temporary cloud or smoke arises, because we know it's going to pass, So then, if a fault arises, if an angry moment arises in someone we know, in their mind, who are by nature much more calm and, so forth, kind, then it would be incorrect to be angry, of course. Because we know they're not like that all the time. So you see, Shantideva is giving all these reasons that we must apply, because if we don't apply reasoning, the tendency is to become very emotional about all these things. And you might say, I've said, we have discussed this, how modern education makes us more thinkers, okay, that we think a lot. of course, what happens though then, to compensate for that, if we are thinkers and we use a lot of rational thought and so forth, and are not in touch with our emotions, then when emotions arise, then they arise with volcanic force, having been kind of suppressed or not expressed sufficiently due to over, cerebral, too much, cerebral conceptual thought or thinking. But here we're being told how logic and thinking things through carefully and in the right manner can be very useful. So we must use that. We must use this kind of reasoning. Our problem is we just engage in just a whole diarrhea, like conceptuality, just on and on and on, thinking, and but not the right kind of thinking, not proper reasoning. So here we're getting proper reasoning. Then some famous verses. If I become angry with the wielder, the holder, although I'm actually harmed by the stick, then, since the perpetrator too is secondary, being in turn incited by hatred, I should be angry with the hatred instead. Yeah. We're not angry at the stick, we're angry at the person who's hitting us with the stick, but the person hitting us with the stick, even they are being controlled by something else, which is the disturbing emotion, the hatred. Previously, I must have caused similar harm to other sentient beings. Therefore, it is right for this harm to be returned to me, who previously caused injury to others. Tit for tat? Well, not exactly tit for tat, but karma is definite, right? Karma is definite. This is, remember the four actions, the four results of a karma. One is the fully ripening effect. We get thrown into a particular kind of rebirth if it's a powerful enough action. But even within that rebirth, they say that rebirth is human, then due to the previous karma of harming others, then we are harmed, and we have, of course, then the habit of harming others, which is very, very dangerous. But the other one is that we are harmed ourselves. We get harmed. We attract harm, not only from others, but also in a sense from the environment, which is the environmental effect. The fourth effect, the environmental effect. There is a non-conducive environment which harms, creates problems for us. So this again, something to consider. Then some very powerful, and all these are very extraordinary verses actually. They're so, I don't know, they really hit the nail on the head. Both the weapon and my body are the causes of my suffering. Okay, so the stick someone hit me with and my own body, they both are needed, yeah, for the suffering of pain. Since the other person brought the weapon into the picture and I brought my body into the picture, whom should I be angry with, right? They brought the stick, but it takes two to tango. I brought my body. If I didn't have such a samsaric body, or if I was already a high-level bodhisattva, it wouldn't matter how much they beat me. It wouldn't pain me at all. But it's not like that. Right now, I'm offering this samsaric body to others, So of course, if they have a weapon, I'll get hurt. So I should, if I want to get angry or upset, I should be upset with the karma I've created, continuously created to have this kind of a body, which is harmed by such small things, and harmed by, one glance, one word in the wrong place, or one tone of voice, we get so upset. If in blind attachment, I myself cling to this suffering abscess of a human form, which can't bear to be touched, With whom should I be angry? When it's hurt. Yeah, that's clear. I cling to this body. One of the main causes of rebirth is attachment, is clinging, is grasping at the five aggregates, grasping at the form, the feeling, and so forth, grasping at it, wanting it again, you know. So I'm clinging to this human form, which may be, decked out to be very beautiful. We can make it look very beautiful, even, quite would be considered quite plain or even ugly people can be, dressed up and painted and so forth to look beautiful. But actually, even if that body, which may be made to look very beautiful and conventionally speaking, maybe very fit, very healthy, very athletic, it's still like a suffering abscess because it is so easily prone to all manner of sicknesses, which then and some of which make the body look hideous, of course. You just have to open some of these books on pathology or, various diseases, these unbelievable sort of diseases that we are prone to, so many kinds, which make the body just look like an open wound. Suffering abscess. It's a very powerful phrase. Does someone have the other translation there, please? The Padmakara, Elaine? Verse 44, chapter 6, please. Do you have it? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Gee, I hope people are enjoying the little snacks they're eating. Apurvaji, I hope you have some good food there. Yeah. See, I can see a lot of you, what's happening. Haji, Elaine?
Yes, Kabirji. So this one is actually quite nice. 1 minute. This body, this is the one, 44 you would like me to read out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
This body, running sore in human form, merely touched, it cannot stand the pain. I am the one who grasped it in my blind attachment. Whom should I resent when pain occurs?
Yeah. Running sore. Yeah. Yeah, strong language, but very appropriate. Running sore. Yeah. I've sometimes had, injuries or skin problems. It went on for months. I remember, being hurt once and I was trying to treat it with all sorts of things, except antibiotics. And it didn't get well. It just went on and on and on and on. I was trying colored water, Ayurvedic, and this and that. And in the end, my uncle said, for heaven's sake, just use something more modern. Okay, so this is a suffering abscess. One doesn't like to think of it like that, but that's what it is. To scratch it or start cutting it up, then what's underneath is a suffering abscess. Yeah. Take off enough skin, and then we die. So whom should I be angry when it's hurt? It's the fault of the childish that they are hurt. Although they don't wish to suffer, they're greatly attached to its causes, so why should they be angry with others? Absolutely. We don't want to suffer, and yet we're attached to the causes of suffering. It's really such a ridiculous, painful situation, isn't it? It's like, I'm often reminded of a fly or a wasp trying to get out of the room. It's bashing itself against the window, even though I've opened the window for it to get out of. No, they continue to bash their heads against. So I don't think we need to say much about that verse. Of course, one can meditate on it, definitely. So much one could think about. that we don't want to suffer. We could make a list of all the things that we do that obviously create suffering. You know, hope and fear and anxiety and impulsiveness and the kind of speech we sometimes use, you know, and the unhealthy food we eat and all the rest of it. So we're very caught up, we're very habituated to the causes of suffering. And of course, our whole samsaric existence is just one big example of how we are attached to the causes of suffering. So long as we indulge aversion, hatred, envy, pride, and all the rest of it, we are just creating the causes, the suffering. Just like the guardians of the hell worlds, the forest of razor-sharp leaves, so is the suffering produced by my actions. With whom, therefore, should I be angry? It's said that in some of the unsavory realms, there are experiences which are like being in a forest of razor-sharp leaves. Apparently, some karmic actions create that as a consequence. It's a kind of generic suffering that has been mentioned by many commentators. And whether it's to be taken literally or just simply to mean an unpleasant environment, I wouldn't know. But this example is given in different texts. The point is, we created it. Just like we created last night's dream. It wasn't created by somebody else. I mean, yeah, even if you say there are some very highly realized beings who can manifest in our dreams, still we're having a dream and we created a cause for it to be able to happen. We were open enough to receive that vision in the dream or whatever. So the dream is our dream. A nightmare is produced by, you know, our mind. My nightmare is produced by my mind. So whom should I be? Whom should I, you know, who is the cause of it? Oneself. If I'm going to be angry, I should be angry at myself or angry at my action. Not just angry at the actions, angry at the delusions. Having been instigated by my own actions, those who cause me harm come into being. If by these actions they should fall into hell, surely isn't it I who am destroying them? So this is very important to understand these verses. I create karma. I create the situation where others harm me. By others harming me, they create negative karma. So they create the causes for suffering and hellish experiences. So I'm creating their suffering. I'm the cause of their suffering, a very big cause of their suffering. So I'm kind of destroying them. If I'm engaging in the Bodhisattva path, trying to engage in it, then I engage in practices of patience, purification, and so forth. So therefore, depending upon these harmful beings, verse 48, I myself, through my own skillful action, I can purify much negative karma that I created. I can purify by depending upon others who get angry with me, by patiently accepting the harms that they cause. But what about the others? Because of me, and they're not practicing, you know, they haven't got the benefit of these teachings. So they, because of me, you know, my creating the cause for the whole situation, and they're getting angry and, you know, doing horrible things, they will fall into hellish pain for a very long time. You see? So given the situation, I create merit by practicing patience and so forth, and they, poor things, they just get the result of negative karma. So I benefit and they suffer from their anger, their negative behavior. I benefit through transforming it, you know, by understanding, by patience, But they, poor sentient beings, they just suffer. So since I'm causing harm to them, of course not deliberately, but this is a reasonable argument he's using. Since I'm causing harm to them and they are benefiting me, why, unruly mind, do you become angry in such a mistaken manner? Yeah, I mean, the logic is infallible. You cannot fault the logic, actually. I am the cause. You could say, I am the cause of them having harm. You could put it that way. I'm not deliberately causing harm to them, but because of me, they are receiving harm. And they are benefiting me, although they don't intend to. They want to harm me, after all, but they're benefiting me because I'm transforming the situation. So then to become angry with that person who is benefiting you, it's totally ridiculous. If my mind has the noble quality of patience, I shall not go to hell. But although I am protecting myself in this way, how will it be so for them? Yeah, I'm not going to go to hell because I'm practicing patience. But those other people, I am protecting myself, but they don't have any means of protection. They haven't engaged in the mind training. So what will be their future? What's their fate? Not good. And if I say, well, I won't practice patience, then I'll harm them in return. Well, that's not going to protect them either. That's not going to help them in any way. And by doing so, my own conduct will deteriorate. And hence this fortitude will be destroyed. So, we can't argue, oh, well, if patience, my practicing patience, they are being harmed, so, okay, let me harm them. That's also, that's not going to help them, is it? It's just two people creating negative karma. Since my mind isn't physical, I can't destroy it in any way. In no way can anyone destroy it. But through its being greatly attached to my body, it has caused harm by physical suffering. Yeah. The mind is not the body, though it's connected. But because this mind is greatly attached to this body, therefore, when my body has harm, is harmed, I also receive mental harm, right? And yet, since disrespect, harsh speech, unpleasant words don't cause any harm to my body, why, mind, do you become so angry? So, people harm my body, I get angry because 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 I'm attached to it. And harsh speech and so forth, they don't harm the body, but again, because of my delusion, my mind becomes angry, even though it doesn't harm my body at all, harmful speech. Yeah. So then again, we get angry. Well, then there's an argument that the samsaric mind uses, which is mentioned in verse 54. The Shantideva has asked, right, why, mind, do you become so angry at harsh speech and so forth? So the samsaric mind in verse 54 says, because others will dislike me. So then Shantideva replies, but since it won't devour me, either in this or in another life, why do I not want this dislike? He's saying this dislike, of others, it's not going to harm me really in this life. It can't harm me in a future life. So why do I not like this? So then again, the samsaric mind answers, because it will hinder my worldly gain. So Shantideva replies, or rather the dharma argument he uses is, even if I do not want this, I shall have to leave my worldly gains behind, and my wrongdoing alone will remain unmoved. Yeah. So these worldly things we're concerned about, they're not going to go with us. But if we behave negatively, that's going to go with us. The stains of that, the imprints of that are definitely going to move along with us. are going to be there in the form of subtle impressions on the mind stream. Yeah. And my wrongdoing alone will remain unmoved. Therefore, it's better that I die today than live a long but wicked life. For even if people like me should live a long time, there will always be the suffering of death. Thus, it's better that I die today than live a long but wicked life. For even if people like me should live a long time, there will always be the suffering of death. Again, these are arguments being put forward to disturb, to act as an antidote to the samsaric way of thinking. That, it's always good to have a long life. Not if one is engaging in non-virtue. And then you can always expect suffering of death, even if one lives a long time. Yeah, his interesting argument he uses in the next two verses. Suppose someone should awaken from a dream in which they experienced 100 years of happiness, right, in the dream. And suppose another should awaken from a dream in which they experienced just one moment of happiness. For both of these people who've awoken, that happiness will never return. Similarly, whether my life has been long or short, at the time of death, it will be finished like this. Yeah, just like waking up from a dream. So the happiness, it's like that we're so attached to, it's there and then it's gone. The happiness won't come back. And though I may live happily for a long time, through obtaining a great deal of material wealth, I shall have to go forth empty-handed and destitute, just like having been robbed by a thief. Then samsaric mind says, surely material wealth will enable me to live. Then I shall be able to consume transgressions and do good. Shantideva says, but if I'm angry on account of this material wealth, then will not my merit be consumed and transgressions increase? And what use will be the life of one who only commits wrongdoing, if, for the sake of material gain, one causes the merits needed for life to degenerate? The merits needed for life are, good karma, saving the lives of others, and so forth. But for the sake of material gain, we often engage in actions which are detrimental to life, like killing, like enjoying the flesh of animals, and so forth, with the wrong motivation, with just motivation of greed or hunger. So then what's the point of that kind of life, Then samsaric mind says, surely I should be angry with those who say unpleasant things that weaken other beings' confidence in me. Shantideva says, in the same way, why am I not angry then with people who say unpleasant things about others? If I can patiently accept this lack of confidence because it is related to someone else, why am I not patient with unpleasant words about myself, since they are related to the arising of disturbing conceptions? Yeah, he's saying it's all very well, isn't it? We don't mind if people say unpleasant things about others, which weakens other beings' confidence in them. But if someone says something unpleasant which weakens confidence in me, then it becomes a big deal. So it's always about me. I, me, mine. That self-centeredness. The self-cherishing attitude. That's always the big demon. a big problem. Should others talk badly of? This is a very interesting verse 64. So amazing, so so needed nowadays. Should others talk badly of, or even destroy, holy images, reliquaries, and the sacred dharma? It is improper for me to resent it, for the Buddhas can never be injured. I remember someone said that when Samdang Rinpoche had been informed or told about the destruction of the great Bamiya Buddha statues, in Afghanistan, he wasn't that upset or anything. Of course, he wouldn't have been happy, but he wasn't that upset. So let people destroy holy images, stupas, the sacred dharma. I shouldn't resent it, because Buddha cannot be injured. The dharma, the real dharma, cannot be destroyed. And that's an inner experience. Texts can be destroyed, statues can be destroyed, temples can be destroyed. Even monks, nuns, and practitioners can be killed, but the dharma, the Buddha cannot be injured. The Buddha nature, you could say, the Buddha. Of course, this is quite a strong statement. We should do whatever we can to not allow the dharma to be destroyed, obviously. But his point is that, what's the point here? The point is that we have to be patient with all manner of things. And look at the results of not being patient. Look at how people get upset when, a book is burned, or, somebody says something about their holy person, or, their holy book, or something like that. And then people get so upset and are willing to fight and kill others. Of course, some people are very, very stupid in provoking others when I think they know others will be provoked. In the name of freedom of speech and so forth, people do some very stupid things. Very, very thoughtless action. But anyway, we should be immune to that. So if somebody, destroys, we hear that someone has destroyed a statue or something, then it is inappropriate for a bodhisattva to be angry. Because remember, we've taken a vow to help all sentient beings, not just the people who like building statues or preserving them. Everybody, from those beings to everyone, scorpions, dengue bearing mosquitoes, everyone. We have to liberate and help get Buddhahood. Maybe another verse or two, we can have discussion. I should prevent anger arising towards those who injure my spiritual masters, relatives, and friends. Instead, I should see, as in the manner shown before, that such things arise from conditions. It reminds me of, I think, a Lebanese man. I mentioned it once before. Lebanese man whose children, I think 2 children, were killed in violence in the Middle East. There was a raid, some kind of raid, bombing by some Israeli forces or whatever, and his 2 children, 2 of his children, were killed. And so rather than develop a lifelong resentment, desire for vengeance, this person started a whole sort of organization for trying to bring peace and so forth. He didn't allow that traumatic event, obviously, for a father to lose 2 children. I mean, wow, think about it. So he used it to promote something beneficial. He didn't allow the pain to become hatred or anger. Although he may have felt it briefly, but he used that situation to promote peace and understanding and so forth, and help for people who are suffering in war. So that's the power of patience, right? That's the power of not giving into anger, because, I mean, imagine what he could have set in motion if he'd got angry and got his friends together and incited them and, started a whole campaign on media and so forth. He could have, tapped into so many people's frustration and anger. I've been in the Middle East, and because my brother lives in Israel, and I've spoken to Palestinian people and so forth in the past when that dialogue was allowed. And I know how much pain and resentment people have, and on both sides, And so it doesn't take much to incite people or get them very upset and angry, even if they don't go out and harm others. Their mind becomes full of negative thoughts and emotions. So for this person to respond with patience and go beyond the patience to engage in generous actions, very positive actions that could help others, that is something so wonderful, isn't it? And that's the power of patience, not retaliating the harm which is caused. And I'm not saying he went through all the reasonings that Shantideva has in his text, but he obviously had some very good imprints, this person, to behave like that and not to get angry. So anyway, let's have discussion now. We've had enough amateur scholarly investigation. What would you like to discuss, folks? You are allowed to unmute yourselves. Very noble silence, your end. Everyone's exhausted. Yeah. Samsara is so exhausting, one way and another.
It's very cold out there, Kabirji.
Not only out there, but in here, in my room, Divya. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm in Dharamsala.
Acha, Dharamshala. Oh, just next to the Vipassana center it is, na? Tushita. Just next to the...
That's right next door.
It's at
right
Dharamkot. Yes, at Dharamkot. Yes.
Dharamkot. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
And for your information, to 6 degrees. So that is quite chilly. Getting cooler in Delhi as well.
Yes, it's cool.
Haji.
Huh?
Pune must be temperate.
It's quite cold in the evening, Kabirji. It goes down quite, 12, 11.
Quite cold. How cold?
Okay. Okay, so that's the end of the weather report. What next? Excuse me. Aha.
Kabirji,
Hajur. Hajurji.
hello.
Yes, बताइए.
I think in Bir for the last 2 days, the internet is not very good. But, you know, this verse, this is 59. I really feel that it is very, I mean, we really need to have, as you have also said, that a lot of contemplation on that. Now, the two of the stories which is really there, one is the Alexander the Great, who virtually conquered half of the world. When he died, he gave the instruction that when his body is taken to the cremation, his palm should be, both the hands should be out, indicating to the public that even persons like him who has conquered the whole world is going empty-handed from this world. So that is, I think, a kind of the wisdom that he really left to the people. And second is, I was told that one of the great historian who was really doing the research, he told me that even the tomb of Iltutmish, who ruled India for quite some years, his mosque in Central Asia, he gave the instruction that one of his hands should be up in the tomb, telling that he also has gone empty-handed. So I think I really feel that keeping this in view that we are going empty-handed, I find that it brings a different perspective to the life. Sometimes it's more like as if we are dropping some of the weights from the mind. I really find it quite helpful, keeping this in view.
Gigi, I think we lost Kabirji, his connection. I think he should be logging back.
We lost the Kabirji, okay.
I think he'll just. He'll
And
answer.
this verse 64, has Kabirji come?
No, I
No.
think
Hello.
But we are listening.
connection problem. I think there is connection problem.
Yeah, this verse 64, I think I was sharing that when this great statue of Buddha was destroyed by the Taliban, there was a press conference, and Samdar Master told me, I mean, he didn't tell me, the people who attended. Do you hear me? Okay. So I think I'll video off. So the press people, they asked Samdar Rinpoche, this statue has been blasted. And Samdar Rinpoche gave a very simple answer. He said that yes, statue has been blasted, but Buddhism will continue. I think that was just a simple answer. I think this is what we really find in this para. And I was really reflecting, the Chinese, they destroyed a lot of monasteries in Tibet, but it really looks like that the roots of Buddhism in Tibet is so strong that now the Chinese government has been rebuilding most of the monasteries, the Buddhist monasteries, which they have destroyed. Of course, I think they have put some control, but the Buddhism seems to be continuing there. So I think this para is quite powerful, the 64, that the outside things, the structures, monasteries, the buildings could be destroyed, but in case the dharma has gone strong in the mind of the people, I think that will really continue. No wonder His Holiness Dalai Lama all keeps on saying that instead of really spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources on the infrastructure, the emphasis should really be put on the dharma, which should really go in the mind of the people. Because ultimately, I think that is what is really going to be helpful. And I think once I shared this story in Tushita, but I really would like to share this. This is a kind of analogy. There was a king who had 4 wives. And the king was about to die. He called the first wife, the eldest one, and said that I'm going to die. You have spent a lot of time with me. You have to come with me. The queen said, look at, I have grandchildren to take care, so many things to be finished. So she refused. And the second one was again requested. She started smiling and she said that, look at your queen. The eldest one has refused. I have many more years to really go. She also refused. And the third one was requested. She again started smiling very sarcastically. Look at what these 2 queens, who are much elder to me, have told you. She also refused. And the fourth one, to whom the king did not really pay much attention, she was asked, will you come with me? And she promptly said that, yes, I'll come with you. Now the story is that who is the first queen? That is the body. And who is the second queen? That is all the relations. And who is the third queen? That is all the wealth, empire, physical properties. And who is the fourth wife? That is the mind, to whom in our daily life we don't pay much attention, but that is the mind which really continues after the death. So can we take care of that? Because that moves life to life, and that determines the quality of our life.
Thank you so much, Ajivji. This was really
Thank you, Ajivji.
Welcome, welcome.
I find verse 48 very powerful. Here the translation here is, because of them and through my patience, all my many sins are cleansed and purified, but they will be the ones who, thanks to me, will have the long drawn agonies of hell. It's quite an irony that because of, I mean, them, I will gain patience, and because of me, they will go to hell. That's because I lose their temper and I'll goad them to all kinds of things. So they will have the bad karma while I'll have the good karma. So that is one reason to have a great deal of, what do you call it? Patience, yes, and forbearance, trying not to do too much wrong.
Yeah, that's very correct. That's very correct.
So we really have to thank everybody for our path. and we need to be careful of not goading them into doing something where they lose their temper or something. So it's really powerful that way.
So, but there's also the other side. By being patient, they sometimes automatically feel they can wrong further. I mean, looking at the way the world is right now, because people are not standing up and sort of, the apathy of correcting the wrongs getting fortified, the wrongs and the killings are going on, people are going first.
Yeah,
It's the more patient you get, the more the wrong sort of get, what's the word, entitled to do what they think they're doing,
I
So
don't
it's
think being angry, or I think whatever we can do at that situation is all we can do. But our getting angry is only going to come back with more anger. So conditions
true. No.
will carry on. Yeah.
That is true.
Patience, but I'm not. Patience doesn't mean not doing anything. Patience with our emotions of getting angry.
So there was an interesting thing that came up yesterday about, I think Ambedkar said something about Buddhism being non-violent, but non-violence doesn't mean being accepting violence, There is a stance where you have, in self-defense or whatever it is, whether it's like we're talking about, domestic violence and violence against the Dalits and things like that. And they said there's a time when they have to stand up and maybe fight back, but how can that be non-violent, So there's this whole dichotomy of when the oppressor uses violence, can the suppressor not react? How can they not react, when it's their life at stake? So it was
I think look at some of the stories in the history. For instance, like His Holiness Dalai Lama,
right, yeah,
who has been thrown out of his country, but he never shows anger towards the Chinese.
Yeah, he's a saint.
He never shows. That is one. You take it even Thich Nhat Hanh, who has been thrown out of the country, but he never became angry. Look at the Martin
No, I'm not
Luther.
saying, Ajivji, I'm not saying anger. I'm saying like violence when someone is being physically.
I mean,
look at what's happening in Iran right now. Youngsters are being killed for helping people, So that's where it's like, there's a line, one wonders where that line is between like self-defense and being violated. So that's what we were discussing yesterday with some of my Dalit friends and all that, because they are non-violent, they believe in Buddhism, ahimsa. But said like, because of that, we can't get beaten, we can't get suppressed. So that's what our talk was about yesterday with some Dalit artists and friends. And I was also at a loss for words. And they brought up the fact that Ambedkar in his book somewhere, and they still have gotten back to me where it is, that in self-defense you can't get, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's like, caste violence, there's a time when one has to stand up and defend oneself. So where does that fit into this whole thing, It's a difficult prospect.
I fully agree with you that in case there's a sense of injustice or the unfairness, that needs to be really responded. But only question is that if there is the anger and one is responding with the anger, will there be solution to that? Or one is taking away that anger and then dealing with the situation. I think that I would really say is dealing with the patience.
Yeah, so I mean, I think theoretically we're
Lost you there. You've muted yourself, Arjun.
small. Yeah, so we are talking about so yesterday I got into a bit of a conversation with my friends who are Dalits, and they were asking, and we were just talking about the fact of nonviolence, and they said, if we are being violated, physically abused, whether it's domestic abuse or it's caste abuse, where does one draw the line, and how can we non-violently, protect ourselves from being physically abused or physically violated or, beaten up? As simple as that. And there was no answer to that. And someone brought up a saying, not a saying, but they'd read somewhere in Ambedkar that for physical defense, one has to fight back. And that's what I think Ambedkar's thing was about: educate, agitate, organize, agitate. So I was wondering where this fits in with this. Yes, we don't want to be violent. Yes, we don't want to be angry. But you're put in a corner and you're being physically abused, violated. Yeah. Where does that come in?
Okay, could I say something?
Please.
Violence, I well remember, and it made a big impression on me. Ramdong Rinpoche saying that violence doesn't mean that you cannot be physically very active and aggressive. Violence is measured by what's happening in your mind. So if you are strongly resisting physical and mental violence from others with strong physical means from your own side, which may look violent to others from the outside, but if your mind is calm and is not motivated by hatred, then your action is not violent. And I don't think anybody in the last couple of centuries has dealt with this issue better than Mahatma Gandhi. Well, of course, you don't want to use his name with the Dalits, unfortunately. That's very sad, but whatever. But his satyagraha has not been equaled, or, we haven't done better than that yet. If you read what Gandhiji said about satyagraha and how he tried to put it into action several times, you won't find anything more powerful than that. But that requires a lot of courage, and it requires group action, which it seems nowadays is very hard to get together, because as you know yourself, the Dalit movement itself is very divided and so forth.
Volatile anyway, right now. That's a sad thing. Yeah.
Not to get into the politics of it, but that requires a tremendous amount of self-control, of purification of the mind. Gandhiji said you can't just have a satyagrahi, made in a day. They have to really purify the mind of ill will. And you see, his point was that if in a state of non-violence in thought, you engage in satyagraha, at some point, the perpetrator of violence from the other side is going to get the message. Their violence is going to reduce. They're going to see the stupidity, what should we say, the grossness of their actions, and it will can have an effect on the mind of the perpetrator. This is what Gandhiji was hoping for, to actually help the aggressor by showing the aggressor how the aggression and the violence is unworthy. It's like shaming them almost, where a person feels ashamed in the face of such courage and non-violence on behalf of the other side. So I think that is one way, but it's very difficult. In terms of a burglar or a murderer coming into your house and trying to kill you or your loved ones, then you obviously have to act in the most dynamic and powerful way physically, don't you? But it doesn't mean that it has to be done with hatred. But of course, that requires training. That requires training, right? So if we've done all the meditations, if we've really prepared ourselves for that kind of situation or any situation, then we can act very powerfully without hatred. But it would look to an outsider like you're just being like any other normal person. But it would be not hatred. And for this, as I've said before, we just need to look at some of the images from Kurosawa's film, The Seven Samurai, as to how a true samurai, not a fake one, how a true samurai deals with violence from an opponent. There's some very powerful sections of that movie. One in particular, where one warrior is faced by a very violent opponent and how he deals with it. In the end, he kills the opponent, but he does it just, it's just unfortunately something that has to be done. No other way. But you can see he's not doing it with violence in mind, with hatred. Yeah. So anyway, just a few thoughts. But yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
There's not going to be a solution unless people are prepared to be as disciplined and as pure-minded as Gandhiji tried himself to be. And I'm sure he would have felt he failed on many occasions, but he was at least honest enough to say, I failed and I make mistakes. How many other people say that nowadays, So, yeah, Gandhi's method has not been superseded. Even Samvang Rinpoche said, give me an army of young Tibetans and we march to the Tibetan border, but have to strictly adhere to the principles of Satyagraha, because he's a great believer in Gandhian Satyagraha. And he says we'll be able to, have an effect. And, that's much more meaningful in terms of trying to liberate Tibet than any other method whatsoever. So anyway, yeah, difficult. One has to be a real warrior to engage in Gandhian Satyagraha, it seems to me. But just read about it, it's very inspiring. It's there in many places. Try and read what Gandhi himself said about it, and then one could read some commentaries. Samvang Rinpoche himself speaks about it in different places. You probably Google it. Yeah. So how are we doing, folks? Yeah.
Kabirji, there are lovely stories of these great masters who live in secluded places, and thieves always come to rob them. And when the thief comes, most of them, at least the stories I've read, will say, oh, you poor thing, and whatever they have, they give the thief. And the thief is so shamefaced, he goes off and he comes back. And there was a lovely Zen story where he gives his one coat that he had to this thief and said, you want something? Let me give it to you. At least I can practice generosity. And then when he left, he said, the only thing is he had left was he looked up and he said, oh, I wish I could give him this moon.
Yeah.
Such a lovely. So we actually don't want our stuff to go away. We are very clingy about our stuff when
Absolutely.
a robber comes in. So
Yes.
yeah, if we just
But-
said
Yeah.
didn't bother, though that is very rare.
But I love Milarepa's story, where he tells the thief, look, you're coming at night to steal. I mean, you won't even find anything during the day. Kind of thing. So,
So in connection with this, I actually, sorry, I have a friend, and her friend, she calls her friends and whoever wants to come to her house, they do meditation. And then she says that you can pick up anything from my house and go, whether it can be a book or a decoration piece. So like that, she says you can just pick up anything from us. So that she is very generous, and her virtue increases like that.
yeah. Does she have a husband?
I don't know about that, but my friend told me she is her friend. I don't think she has a husband. Saying she's single.
Very good. Yeah.
That would be a good thing to pick up.
Yeah, for some, yes. I don't think I'd want people to take some of my books. Some things I'd be happy, some things not. Many things.
Not my
books are very precious,
not my
actually. Books are
Yeah.
very precious, yes.
Well, precious to me, not to someone who doesn't need them. I was reading something recently, yesterday actually, about how Trungpa himself says one should read up to the point where one is inspired by a book and then leave the book, then practice. Okay, don't keep on being inspired by books. And I was so sad to read that. It was obviously true, but
No, but we need inspiration again and again, Kabirji, from the same book. It's okay.
That's a good argument. Okay, I'll use that one in future. Yeah, with my inner critic. Yeah,
Yeah, because our minds are sieves also. We forget so much as we read. Now that You have
Yes,
to
it's a
cling.
great argument, Horizon. I especially forget things. I forget things minute to minute, so I need to read all the time.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well done.
So I read the same chapter I read last night because I go like, what did I read last night? I was zoned out somewhere. So let's go back into it.
I know the feeling, unfortunately. What else, folks? Silent majority, minority? Neha, Komal, Nivita, Gaurav, Vishad, Apurva, Isar, Prakash. All of you silent. Absorbing by osmosis all this wisdom, yeah? Very good. Very good. बड़ा wisdom, बहुत ज्ञान की बातें होते हैं यहाँ. पता नहीं हम लोग जगह है दिमाग में या नहीं इतना ज्ञान के लिए. लगता है कि है. Anyway, I have to start improving my Hindi because I've signed up to help with a 8-day Hindi language course at Tushita next June. I have to revise all my Dharma terms and become fluent in Dharma Hindi by next June. So maybe we can have a little more of the sessions in Hindi, although apologies to Marathi people in the sessions.
Kabirji, you're born and brought up in England?
No, incorrect. Born in Delhi.
Okay. But you stayed abroad, no?
I have lived abroad, yes. But not long enough to become totally, disturbed, whatever. Yeah, I came back in time to save my mind. Yeah. Kindness of the Lamas, actually. They called me back. So I came back to work in Bihar, which is another great learning. Yeah. But yeah, when I talk and all, does it seem like I'm a Britisher, Divya, or an Indian, or some kind of bastard sort of?
What do you say? Yeah, I feel you are an Anglo-Indian. I feel you are an Anglo-Indian.
You
Crossbreed,
speak
crossbreed.
well-educated Indian.
Not Indo-Anglian. Not Indo-Anglian.
Crossbreed,
Well-educated
as we say.
An Indian.
Hybrid doesn't quite do it. Hybrid, Nivita, is like roses or some plant, or hybrid, mangoes. But
Crossbreed, I'd say. Crossbreed.
Crossbreed.
Mulatto.
That's
Never.
a particular color.
Not a mulatto.
Mulatto has to be a black person. And
Yeah, it has to
white.
be color combinations. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Divya, for your interesting question.
He sounds like an well-educated Indian. Yes.
Well-educated Indian. Well, I wish I was better educated because according to Samdong Rinpoche, the only worthy education is to be educated in the parampara, the Indian parampara, which means that, which is basically Shil, Samadhi, Pragya, and what we Buddhists are talking about, that kind of parampara, which has
So
to
you're
have
well-educated in that sense, you are. So that's okay.
beginning to be, yes, beginning to be. But when Divya said well-educated Indian, I think she meant, like Western educated.
I said that, yes. I did.
Shashir Tharoor.
Yes.
No.
With that anglicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-spoken.
But I think, the Western education I am thankful for in many ways. One way in that it showed me how much I needed the Indian education, the traditional Indian education, if you like. But that is also a gift of foreign university in that I met Buddhism at Oxford. So lucky me, I didn't benefit that much from the history, but I benefited from the Buddhism input long term. Yeah. So very grateful for that and for the tutorial system there, which meant you and your tutor just two of you in the class. So then you couldn't get away with any nonsense, you know. So you had to write a good essay, otherwise the tutor would tear it apart, kind of thing. So that was useful, you know. Staying up all night writing essays, also useful. Then you go through a barrier. You think, oh, I can't stay up all night, but then you do, you know. You have to.
What were you studying in England?
University of history.
Buddhism or what?
History.
History, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So there we are. Okay, folks.
So how did you come to Buddhism and studying history?
Well, there was a very good Buddhist society at university, and I'd already been studying it, reading it. Yeah. And other factors, like my mother was very sick and dying, and so the mind was much more serious than you'll find it now. I have a very flippant mind right now, but in those days I was quite serious and investigating. Yeah. So yeah, the mind was ripe. It's the year I took refuge, same year my mother passed away. So you know,
Okay, nice. Yeah.
it was a powerful time. Thank you for promoting me, Ajitji. I'm glad you got the university right. If you'd written Cambridge, then I'd have been, you know, I would have manifested anger. There's some things being worth being angry about. Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard quite a few times when I said Cambridge University, you showed bit of a disdain to that university. So I was very particular that I don't make any mistake in indicating your university.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, and I have a real degree. It's not a fake degree. But yeah, it was only second class, though. Not first class like people like, I don't know, Tharoor and other people probably got first class. I don't know, wherever they went. Anyway, okay, what else, folks?
And
Kabirji,
those who have not visited Bodh Gaya,
Yes.
if you visit, kindly visit. There's a road also known as the Saxena Road.
I'm going to mute
Saxena
you.
Road.
I'm going to mute you. I've muted him. He was going to speak something unspeakable. Yeah. Ajitji, I'll
Kabirji, there's a very
Kabirji, which
famous doha on your name. Kabir, कबीरा खड़ा चौराहे पे मांगे सबकी खैर, ना कहूँ से दोस्ती, ना कहूँ से बैर.
क्या बात है, क्या बात है.
Ajitji, what road?
This road, Kabirji was instrumental.
Power.
We'll go there and see whatever it is.
And the road which leads.
I think Ajitji's had a bit of an evening sundown or something. He's not talking sense today. So we better keep him muted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What he was trying to say is there is a road in Bodh Gaya which the rickshawalas who couldn't say Root Institute, but they could say Saxena, so they've named it Saxena. But I'm not proud because it is the worst road in Bodh Gaya. It has been totally destroyed by the building work on both sides. It is disgusting. And I have memories of it when it was a beautiful country road many years ago with 13 palm trees. And now it's got ugly houses, hotels, disgusting, good in one way, but a recycling kind of plant on the right, but totally, you know, ad hoc. It is disgusting. So yeah, I am going to try and get it changed to somebody else's name. Any of you want your name on a road in Bodh Gaya, then it can be done for a price. Yeah. But they can keep the corner.
No price.
But not only is the road in my name, the corner is in my name. Did you know that, Ajitji? Saxena Mall, where you turn off.
Yeah. I saw the board.
That can stay. That can stay. But the road, yeah. Anyway, this is Shantideva says that blame is better than praise. Yeah. So any kind of praise is not to be. Isar, anything, sir? Your visit after Bodh Gaya, how did you find doing some intensive practice for 7-8 days? Did it deepen your understanding of compassion and bodhicitta?
Yeah, Kabirji, I think it was a great experience. I think a lot of people from Tushita were fortunate enough to do the Bodhichitta retreat at different locations,
Right.
either Tushita or Samling. But yeah, it was lovely to like be in Bodh Gaya. You know, we went to Nalanda as well as the main stupa, and then of course with Geshe-la, the teachings were amazing. Really good group of people as well.
Good.
I think one of the things like before going, I always thought Bodhichitta was like more to like just to do with compassion and like, you know, the two methods and stuff like that. But then Geshe-la kind of clarified that, and he talked about like conventional Bodhichitta, which is that, and then ultimate Bodhichitta, which is to do with the wisdom of emptiness. So I think that was a big takeaway, something that I didn't know before that
Okay, good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, well, when you're a bit older, then, or even now, we need people like you to also help these centers in the future. The elder generation is getting a little old and decrepit, and needs more youngsters to start looking after these centers, quite frankly. Yeah. So hopefully you and others can use the center more and attract more youthful energy to take these places, you know, into the future, the challenging future. Right. What else, folks? No, we don't have to go on. It's not compulsory. Divya, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Kabirji, which book is this which you are studying from, and where can I get it? Can you show me?
Which book?
Shantideva's which book? What is the name of the book which all of you are studying?
The one we've used so many times before, Divya.
What is the name? Where can I get it from?
You
A
can get
guide
it.
to
The Bodhisattva's Way
Bodhisattva
of Life.
Way of Life. Acha. A guide
Yeah,
to Bodhisattva. Okay.
you can
From
get it.
Amazon, I can get it from Amazon.
I'm sure.
Okay.
It's also been posted, in case you just want the soft version. It's been posted on the Tushita WhatsApp group.
Okay.
It's there. You can see it's always attached. That text is always attached to the posting that is sent out. So
Okay.
you can take a look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's different translations. Yeah. What else, folks? Anything? No? Okay. So we'll stop there. Next session together. I should be back in Delhi on Thursday. So Thursday session again online and in person at Tushita. So meanwhile, let's dedicate the positive energy from this session together so that it's not dissipated or wasted. We can again reflect on how fortunate we are to be able to study and reflect on the Dharma in these very challenging of times where we need as many Bodhisattva warriors as possible to ensure even survival, perhaps. Survival of people, survival of environment. So anyway, we dedicate that whatever we have studied, it becomes not just intellectual knowledge that we can show off, but it becomes part of our way of life so that it can have a real effect on ourselves and others in a beneficial way. And of course, we keep on praying, and we must, that the authentic Dharma survives for a very long time, and that we are never separated from that authentic Dharma and from authentic teachers. So recently, people saw the benefit of having an ordained person, Mujamyang, teach at the center. So like that, so many good teachers nowadays. So may such teachers have long and healthy lives, develop their practice. And may the really, the great lamas and so forth, may they have long and healthy lives, and may all their holy wishes be fulfilled. Meanwhile, may our lives be most meaningful for others. Meaning that whoever has anything to do with us, may they benefit from that connection due to the power of our positive intention. And may we, Shantideva says at the end of chapter 3, may we invite all sentient beings, have that attitude, inviting all sentient beings as guests. Just as we would take care of a guest, so may we take care of all the sentient beings who wish for happiness, don't want suffering. And then in the words of Shantideva himself from his great 10th chapter, dedication chapter, we can dedicate that may sentient beings not experience the misery of the lower realms, may they never know any hardships, and may they swiftly attain Buddhahood. May they again and again make offerings to all the Buddhas. May they constantly be joyful with the inconceivable bliss of the Buddhas. Just as they intended, may the Bodhisattvas fulfill the welfare of the world. May all sentient beings receive whatever the Buddhas have intended for them. May I live and be sustained by simple, common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude for practicing Dharma. For as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering, the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjughose, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. Thank you, everyone, very much. Have a very good evening, and see you all before long.
Thank you, Kabirji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you guys just stop the recording also? Over there?
Yep. 1 second.
Thanks.